Cage Dive with your host Kyle Delaney for CouchFire.co, and in this installment I'd like to talk specifically about who I believe is going to be able to defeat the light heavyweight champion of the world in the UFC, Jon Jones. Now, just very quickly before I get into this, is that Jon Jones is one of the most talented fighters that we will see for a long time. He is one of these new breed MMA type of fighters. He's a hybrid, really. Based on his style, he can honestly do anything. He is a very hard fighter to defeat because he is so well balanced. I just like to say that before anything is that, in my opinion, I mean, first off, there's very few people that could beat Jon Jones. But what I wanted to say really is that I've been seeing this word floating around in the media and the news and Twitter, and that he's unbeatable. And you know what? The way it looks right now, absolutely. You know, he could be unbeatable, but just to clarify, nobody is unbeatable. Very few people have gone through their careers and have not lost a fight and gone undefeated. Nobody is unbeatable. Somebody always has that day that they will get shut down, they'll get knocked out, they'll get submitted. Nobody's unbeatable. There's always a way. And on any given, well, you say any given Sunday for football, any given Saturday, okay, any given fight night, anything's possible. That's what's so great about the sport of MMA. And yes, Jon Jones has all the tools possible to defeat almost anybody. Almost anybody. Okay? But this is what I'm going to do is break down what weaknesses and holes in his game he showed and pick a fighter who I believe is going to beat Jon Jones. And that fighter is Dan Henderson. And yes, this is a very he's not the most skilled fighter, he's not the most balanced fighter, but it's a fighter who presents the most problems for Jon Jones based on the holes and weaknesses we've seen, and there's very few. But nobody's perfect, and everybody does have holes in their game. So I'm just going to talk about that in this video. So Dan Henderson, in my opinion, will defeat Jon Jones if that fight ever does happen. So let's just go down this very quickly. Like I said, Jon Jones and any fighter does have holes in their game, and it's been very tough to see holes in a fighter's game. I mean, but recently, in this Lyoto Machida fight, there were holes in Jon Jones' game. In the first round, I'd say Lyoto Machida won that fight. I was very concerned for Jon Jones, and I picked Jon Jones to win with his wrestling advantage. But Jon Jones got outstruck on his feet with his long reach. And what we saw is, and what a few people have been saying is we haven't seen Jon Jones have anybody be aggressive towards him. He's always dictated the pace. He uses his reach as really something to fall back on. He's very comfortable with his reach. He almost has grown too comfortable with his reach. Okay, when you have an 84.4-inch reach and you have a longer reach than almost anybody that you fight, you tend to grow too comfortable sitting behind it. But when someone comes inside that and gets you outside your comfort zone, well, then you get to see what kind of fighter this person truly is. And in this case, Lyoto Machida pressed forward on Jon Jones and landed some very good strikes. Did we see that Jon Jones has a pretty good chin? Yes, I doubted Jon Jones' chin. He's got a pretty formidable chin. I'm not going to say it is an incredibly strong chin, but he showed a pretty good chin against Machida. He took some powerful shots. What we saw, though, is Jon Jones is put outside his comfort zone, sitting outside his pocket. You have to press forward and be aggressive, throw multiple strikes, and put Jon Jones on his heels. He's not used to that, okay? Because most people respect his reach. The fighter who beats Jon Jones does not respect his reach and pushes forward, but he's going to have to eat shots in the process, and that's what Machida did. Machida's a tough guy. It was a good fight. Okay, regardless of the outcome, Machida really did fight a great fight. He really did. He prepared very well for it, and he outclassed and he outfought Jon Jones on their feet. But, you know, you can't grapple with Jon Jones. I mean, apparently you can't have a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and be able to beat Jon Jones. He's just that good. But he was outstruck on his feet. So what you have to do is you have to put Jon Jones on his heels, be aggressive, and use a barrage of punches. Kicks. It could be whatever. I mean, I think kicks wouldn't be the best idea because he's probably going to shoot and take you down with his superior wrestling. You have to suffocate him. Put him out of his comfort zone. Do not let him get comfortable. And Lyoto Machida showed us that. There's very few people who have done that. And lots of respect to Lyoto Machida for actually sticking it to Jon Jones and showing us all that, you know, for a round, we really saw, my goodness, this hybrid fighter, this one of the greatest pound-for-pound fighters, one of the top pound-for-pound fighters, is human. He's mortal. Look at this. He's getting struck. He's off balance. He doesn't know Machida's timing. Now, Machida's very elusive. He's very quick, and he was the aggressor in this. But we really did see Jon Jones. He was definitely, I'd say, a little bit worried after round one. Then uses wrestling to finish off the fight. His wrestling and submission ability. So When he does back up, though, when Jon Jones does back up, he leaves his head exposed. He does. He left his head exposed in some of the parts of that fight in the first round against Machida. So, the fighter that beats Jon Jones. Okay, first off, let's just go down the list. You cannot outstrike Jon Jones if you're going into deeper rounds. You can't outstrike Jon Jones. He's a smart striker. He has his reach to his advantage. You can't out-wrestle or out-grapple Jones. There's no way. I mean, we saw Blackhouse, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, try and grapple with Jones and got completely outclassed and got submitted cold. He got choked out cold. You cannot out-wrestle the guy. It does not matter what your background is. He's one of the best in the game, and his reach and his frame allow him to do so. And you can't fight at his pace. You cannot allow him to dictate his pace. You have to put him out of that pace. You have to make him uncomfortable. So there's really hardly any holes in the game. But how do you beat Jon Jones? Okay, with all that being said, the fighter that beats Jon Jones is the fighter that knocks out Jon Jones. Takes no regard, disrespects his reach, throws their body out there, uses their chin in the process, and nails him with that power shot. Now, it doesn't have to be a KO. It could be a TKO, but you're not going to go into later rounds. You can't decision Jones. You can't out-wrestle Jones. You can't outsmart Jones and outstrike Jones. You got to knock him out. You got to hit the Hail Mary. That's how well balanced the guy is, but that's the guy that's going to beat him. So this is what I like to say. Dan Henderson is the guy who is going to defeat Jon Jones. And listen, this the odds of this happening are very slim to none? I think so, absolutely. But based on everything that we've seen, the holes in the game, that's how it's going to happen. I'm calling this one. This is, it's a tough call. It's a tough pick, but Dan Henderson will defeat Jon Jones if this fight ever does happen. What Dan Henderson possesses, he possesses the H-bomb, one of the most powerful overhand rights and some of the most powerful strikes in the game of MMA, still to this day at the age that he's fighting at in the 40s. So Dan Henderson has the power. He has the aggressiveness, the old school fighting style, the pride fighting style. Move into the pocket. No, not even worrying about the strikes that you're getting and trying to lay the lumber. Just let the strikes flow. Let the strikes fly. That's what he did against Shogun. Did not even care about the strikes that he was taking and simply just stepped up in the pocket. Here's the difference. This is what people thought Rampage would knock out Jon Jones. Rampage Jackson could have knocked out Jon Jones, even though he got completely destroyed and completely outclassed, completely outfought on his feet. It's because Rampage Jackson lacked the aggression in that fight. He respected Jon Jones' stand-up way too much. And Dan Henderson, this is the difference. Dan Henderson will not. Dan Henderson will go right after you. That's the thing, is that he does not have the cardio to fight Jon Jones for 5 rounds if it's a title fight. He does have the wrestling to stick around for a little bit, but his best bet would be to be on his feet. And Dan Henderson's going to go right after you. He's good, and this is the one thing I will say, is that Jon Jones will pick you apart. Rampage Jackson did have a good chin, but in the end he got submitted because he got outworked and he just got completely beaten up and there was nothing left to the guy. But this is where I say Dan Henderson has the best chin in all of MMA. He's never been knocked out before. The reason why he's going to step up in the pocket is because his chin will allow him to do so. People says, well, Machida was he was so athletic, he was so elusive. Yes, he's more athletic and elusive than Dan Henderson, but he does not have Dan Henderson's chin. Dan Henderson does not have that athleticism. But what he does have is a chin that's going to allow him to step in the pocket, eat some shots, and then throw that overhand right. And if you continue to press, he will catch Jon Jones. That's exactly what's going to happen. Whether it's the right or the left that knocked out Vanderlei Silva, that's what's going to happen. That's how Jon Jones gets defeated. It has to be that Hail Mary hit, that home run hit that knocks him out or rattles him, and the fighter's going to suffocate him and TKO him. It's either a KO or a TKO, and there's no fighter better than Dan Henderson. Not only that, Dan Henderson, his wrestling will allow him to keep this fight standing for at least 1 to 2 rounds, and he could still go on his back in the first couple of rounds, but his wrestling will keep him on his feet. He is a very qualified wrestler, Greco-Roman wrestler. He's a very, very decorated wrestler, but nobody can out-wrestle Jon Jones. So, and here's the couple concerns, is that, yes, I think Dan Henderson will beat Jon Jones based on his power, his chin, and his disregard for anybody's type of skills or game, just because of what they're confident in. But what Dan Henderson does lack, if this is to happen, it needs to happen in the first 2 rounds, maybe 3. Dan Henderson's cardio, he's getting older. His cardio, it started to give out in the 4th and 5th rounds against Shogun. So if it is done, and if he is to beat Jon Jones, it's in the first 2 rounds, TKO or KO. So that's what I see happening. I say Dan Henderson dethrones Jon Jones as the light heavyweight champion of the world by TKO or KO in the first 2 rounds. And call it a wild card pick. but that's who I believe has the best skills to defeat Jon Jones. And that's what I have for this edition of the Cage Side Couch. This is Kyle Delaney signing off. I'm out of here.